What's up guys, John here. 71 years. That's how long Carol Fulmer Logistics has been moving freight across America, until they shut their doors just a few months ago.
You've likely seen Carol Fulmer trucks on the highway. The logistics company recently announcing its closure after decades in business.
They've been such a great supporter of the community, every level from strategic planning to transportation. It's heartbreaking for the whole community.
Think about that, a company that's been around and lived through countless recessions, oil shocks, and questionable periods inside of American history. That out of nowhere, now they're suddenly gone. And they are not alone. Many other companies are following suit. Yellow Corporation, nearly 100-year-old company, 30,000 total employees. They collapsed last year.
The Teamsters Union received legal notice that the Yellow Corporation ceasing operations, filing for bankruptcy. That's a loss, about 30,000 jobs.
Even Convoy, the so-called Uber of freight, backed by Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, they couldn't survive. What's happening right now is called the Great Freight Recession. Trucking companies, big names, and family businesses alike, they are all going bankrupt at a pace we have not seen in years.
Carol Fulmer is one of several trucking companies across the United States that has faced challenges since 2022.
And here's the thing, when the truck stops moving, it's then no longer about trucking. It's about everything that you and I rely on. Food, goods, deliveries, even jobs in town rely on this industry. So today we're diving into why America's trucking backbone is breaking down, who's being hit the hardest, and what this means for all of us. So what exactly is going on? Economists are calling this a freight recession, but let's look at the details. It basically means there's a lot more trucks than there is loads to fill them. Freight volumes have been falling for months, and shipping rates are stuck at rock bottom prices. For truckers, that's brutal. They're paying more for fuel, insurance, and labor with less revenue coming in. Imagine running a business where your costs keep climbing, but your revenue continues to decline. That's literally the reality right now across the entire trucking industry. And you can see it clearly in the data. Trucking bankruptcies spiked in 2024, and they have not slowed down in 2025. Every month, more fleets, some that have been around for decades, simply closing their doors. But here's the thing, this is not just a trucking problem. When the backbone of America's supply chain slows down, everything from the produce in your grocery stores to your at-home deliveries start to feel the pressure equally. So let's talk about the companies caught in the middle of this storm, because their stories explain just how deep this crisis is. Let's start with Carol Fulmer Logistics, a family-owned trucking company that ran for 71 years out of Florida. They've made it through recessions and fuel crises, even the crisis of 2020. But this summer, the math stopped working. Rising costs, lawsuits, shrinking demand. After 7 decades, the trucks stopped rolling. Then there's the Yellow Corporation. If you've ever driven in an American highway, you've seen the yellow trucks. They're one of the longest standing carriers in American history, with over 30,000 employees. Founded in 1929, almost a 100-year-old company. Gone in 2023 as the company collapsed under billions of dollars in debt.
Collapse of Yellow, one of the country's biggest trucking companies, affecting 30,000 workers and leaving taxpayers in the hole for hundreds of millions of dollars it received during COVID.
And it's not just the old names. Even the new players are folding. Remember Convoy, the so-called Uber for trucking, backed by Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos? In 2015, they promised to revolutionize freight with apps and algorithms. By 2023, they shut down operations. Their assets were sold off to the highest bidder. Turns out even tech cannot escape the freight recession. And those are just the headlines. Behind them are dozens upon dozens of mid-size operators. Companies like Dulce Truckload, Elite Carriers, Daniel Trucking International, all of which have filed for bankruptcy in 2025. Collectively, they were responsible for employing thousands of Americans, mechanics, dispatchers, entire communities and families that depended on this industry. What we are watching is a pattern. It doesn't matter if you're a century-old giant, a family business, or a Silicon Valley startup. If the freight economy dries up, no one is safe. So how did we get here? It really started during the pandemic. Back then, millions of Americans were staying home inside of the lockdowns, ordering flat screen TVs, exercise bikes, and furniture. These trucking companies, they could not keep up. Fleets, they bought new trucks, They were on a hiring spree, and they were borrowing tons and tons of money at very low interest rates. These companies expanded like crazy. Fast forward to today, the demand, it's gone. People aren't filling their stuff with unnecessary junk anymore. They've switched their spending to restaurants, vacations, and experiences. Freight volume, it's collapsed. But all those new trucks, they still have payments, and they're still on the road. Too many trucks, not enough freight, supply and demand. And as that's all happening, the costs are skyrocketing. Diesel prices spiked, insurance spiked, repairs have gotten a lot more expensive. And unlike big retailers who can push those costs on to consumers, small carriers, they live load to load. Every mile driven is worth less as the costs keep rising. Then lay on tariffs and trade wars. Global supply chains are rerouting, imports are slowing, and uncertainty is freezing demand. Truckers, they can't plan ahead when they don't know what could happen next month. And here's the final blow, financing. During the boom, cheap credit kept fleets alive. Now with higher interest rates and tighter lending, smaller operators cannot refinance their trucks to stay in business. Once the banks stop lending, the trucks stop moving. Put it all together and you'll see a slow motion collapse inside of freight. Overcapacity and falling demand, rising cost and tighter credit. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And trucking companies, no matter how big or small, are feeling the pain. And when the trucks stop moving, the ripple effects go past that industry. For consumers, it shows up quietly with delayed packages, fewer options on store shelves, higher prices on goods that have to be shipped long distances. Ever notice your groceries keep ticking up a little bit in cost every month, or online orders taking a little bit longer to arrive? That's the freight slowdown trickling into your life. But the impact goes deeper. Whole towns rely on trucking. When a company like Carol Fulmer goes bust, it's not just drivers that lose their jobs. It's dispatchers, mechanics, warehouse workers, the nearby diners and restaurants, lawn care specialists that cutting the lawns for the people that own those homes. It ripples from one industry to the next. And banks, they're feeling the pain too. Fleets that are financing and refinancing their trucks are doing so on a multi-$100,000 loan balance, whereas a normal car might be $50,000, $80,000 loan. On a truck, it might be $250,000, $500,000 loan. So if that company goes bankrupt and they have 100 trucks, you do the math. It's going to equate to many banks being much more careful on lending in the trucking industry, which will make it that much harder for the next small operator to get their start. And then there's the ports. Remember the dock worker strike in 2024 that froze imports?
45,000 U.S. dock workers walked off the job, launching a strike that has shut down 36 ports along the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico, threatening to disrupt the nation's supply chain.
Or the near shutdown earlier this year before the new contract was signed. Every time port labor slows down, trucking demand whipsaws. Drivers cannot get steady work, companies can't plan, and freight gets more chaotic. Even labor inside of freight is boiling. In February, over 500 USPS drivers walked out on strike. Grocery drivers in Dallas voted to authorize a strike, partly because of their fear of being replaced by autonomous trucks. When workers are striking in the middle of a recession, you know the pain is real. This is not just one industry in trouble. It's a chain reaction from ports to trucking to warehouses, and to the stores that you and I both shop at. The arteries in the US economy are clogging up, and the symptoms are starting to show everywhere. In every crisis, there are winners and there are losers. And the freight recession, the divide could not be any clearer. On the losing side, it's small and mid-sized fleets, family businesses, independent owner-operators, even regional carriers with a couple hundred trucks. They do not have the cash reserves to survive months of rock-bottom freight rates. When fuel spikes and banks pull back financing, they are completely done. These are the companies folding every single month. On the winning side, it's the giants. Railroads, intermodal carriers, and mega trucking fleets with thousands upon thousands of trucks. They can absorb the losses, undercut small rivals, and scoop up and consolidate market share. Every time a family fleet shuts down, a competitor grows stronger. There's also a quiet winner, cold chain and refrigerated carriers. While general freight has slumped, demand for moving produce, dairy, and medicine has stayed more resilient. If you're hauling lettuce and pharmaceuticals, you're going to be in better shape than if you're hauling TVs. But here's the bigger picture. The freight industry, it's consolidating. Fewer larger companies are controlling more of America's supply chain. And history shows when that happens, efficiency may go up, but so does the pricing. Because when there's less competition, there's more control. And the people that will get squeezed, usually going to be the consumers and the small carriers. So where do we go from here? Some analysts are calling this a short reset. Too many companies entered the industry after COVID, and now the weak ones are getting cleared out. Once enough capacity leaves, rates will likely go up and the industry may stabilize. Others see a long-term grind. Consumers are spending less on goods. Banks are pulling back on lending, and tariffs keep clouding demand. That means more bankruptcies, more consolidation, and a change in the industry as a whole. The signal to watch? Freight rates, truck orders, and bankruptcies. If rates rise and orders pick up, recovery could be right around the corner. But if closures keep accelerating, things could get worse in 2026. What we are seeing is not just a trucking problem. This is a stress test for the entire US economy, from century-old companies to Silicon Valley startups. Nobody is safe when the freight trucking backbone breaks. And the impact does not stop with companies. It shows up in our grocery bills, our deliveries, and the jobs that keep our towns alive. So what do you think? Have you noticed delays, higher costs, or trucking layoffs in your area? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your experience might be part of an even bigger story. The Great Freight Recession is happening right now, and how it ends will affect every one of us.